5 things Sigma males have zero tolerance for. Stoic. Life lessons. Stoicism. Every man has limits, boundaries that, once crossed, redefine how he engages with the world. Most people adjust their standards based on relationships or circumstances. Sigma males? They don't. These lone wolves seem easygoing, detached from social drama. But beneath their calm exterior are principles that are absolute. Unlike others who compromise or seek approval, Sigma males enforce their boundaries without hesitation. They don't waste energy on power struggles, but when a line is crossed, there's no debate, no second chances, no slow withdrawal, just immediate action. So, what are the 5 things a Sigma male will never tolerate? The behaviors that make them cut ties instantly. Let's dive in. Number 1. Disrespect disguised as just joking. A Sigma male doesn't waste time in social games, nor does he entertain veiled insults wrapped in humor. When someone throws a backhanded remark and follows it with "relax, I'm just joking," or "don't take it so seriously," a Sigma doesn't just shrug it off like most people do. He sees through the act, recognizing that humor often serves as a thin disguise for what someone truly believes, but lacks the courage to say outright. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." A Sigma embodies this principle, not by lashing out, but by silently reassessing the person who crossed the line. A well-placed joke can strengthen bonds, but a joke aimed at undermining, belittling, or embarrassing is something else entirely. It signals insecurity, envy, or an attempt to establish dominance through subtle mockery. The friend who jokes about your appearance may be hiding his own lack of self-confidence. The colleague who mocks your ambitions may be revealing his own fear of mediocrity. The relative who ridicules your life choices is often burdened by regrets he refuses to face. The Sigma male understands this dynamic instinctively, and while he may not call it out immediately, he makes a mental note, one that permanently alters the way he engages with the person responsible. This reaction isn't born out of sensitivity, but out of clarity. When someone repeatedly disguises their true thoughts behind humor, it's only a matter of time before they escalate. What starts as a harmless joke can evolve into subtle manipulation, chronic disrespect, or outright hostility. And so, the Sigma male does not grant second chances where disrespect is concerned. There is no argument, no attempt to fix the situation, he simply adjusts. "A wise man is content with his own approval," said Seneca. And in that spirit, the Sigma male does not seek validation from those who belittle him. He simply withdraws, disengages, and moves forward, leaving the offender to wonder what changed. Modern society often pressures people to play along, to accept veiled disrespect in the name of being easygoing. But a man who understands what is Stoicism knows that tolerance for disrespect is not a virtue, it's self-betrayal. In Stoic life lessons, one of the core teachings is that external events, including the words of others, are beyond our control, but our response to them is entirely ours. By refusing to entertain disguised insults, the Sigma male reaffirms his self-respect and signals to the world that he is not a man who can be easily diminished. This quiet refusal to tolerate disguised disrespect is not about arrogance, it's about integrity. In a world where most people endure harmless jabs to keep the peace, the Sigma male walks away, not with hostility, but with a simple, unshakable understanding. A person who disrespects in jest will eventually disrespect in earnest. Number 2. Fake smiles and insincere compliments. A Sigma male does not navigate the world with blind trust, nor does he waste energy playing along with social niceties that feel forced or insincere. He understands that while society thrives on politeness, not all smiles are genuine, and not every compliment is rooted in truth. Scientists say the human face can produce thousands of expressions, but only a Duchenne smile, one that engages the muscles around the eyes, reflects true warmth. The social smile, on the other hand, is mechanical, just a movement of the mouth, often devoid of real emotion. Sigma males don't need to be body language experts to recognize the difference. They feel it instinctively. They sense the slight delay between words and intent, the tone that doesn't match the message, the eyes that don't quite connect with sincerity. And just like that, the person in front of them shifts from potential ally to mere acquaintance, an individual not to be trusted with anything meaningful. This isn't about arrogance or paranoia. It's about understanding human nature. Have you ever been in a room full of people smiling and nodding, but you could tell, deep down, that none of it was real, that the handshakes were just empty gestures, the words polished but hollow? Maybe it was at work, where a colleague praised your efforts, but you knew they were angling for credit. Or perhaps it was at a family gathering, where an old friend told you, "We should catch up soon," with the same enthusiasm they'd use on a stranger they'd never see again. These moments don't bother most people. They brush them off as part of life. But a Sigma male takes note, not out of pettiness, but because he values authenticity over performance. He is not fooled by exaggerated praise, over-the-top enthusiasm, or friendliness that changes based on convenience. Stoicism Today teaches a similar lesson. Do not waste time arguing what a good man should be one. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that character matters more than words. A Sigma male applies this principle ruthlessly in his social interactions. He would rather have a handful of honest, unpolished connections than 100 polished but meaningless acquaintances. Some might call this judgmental, but it is not about perfection. It is about energy. A man only has so much time, so much trust, so much attention to give. Why waste it on people who say one thing and mean another? In a world where surface-level charm often wins over substance, where networking often feels like an act, where friendships are sometimes little more than strategic alliances, choosing real connection over social convenience is an act of self-respect. Think of a high-level executive who's learned to smile through every meeting, nod through every conversation, charm his way through every social engagement. He is surrounded by people who flatter him, who laugh at his jokes, who agree with everything he says. But the moment he's no longer useful, the smiles vanish. He calls an old friend, only to find that the warmth was never real. It was transactional. A Sigma male sees this game early and refuses to play it. He'd rather walk alone than be surrounded by performative friendships. Over time, his social circles become small but powerful. He may be polite to everyone, but he only invests in those who show consistency in character. He is drawn to people whose compliments are based on observation, not obligation. He respects those whose friendliness isn't dictated by need, but by genuine care. The result? While the world around him is filled with shallow interactions, he builds relationships on trust, truth, and mutual respect. The Stoic mindset teaches that true happiness does not come from external validation, but from internal alignment with one's values. A Sigma male embodies this by choosing depth over breadth, sincerity over convenience, and self-respect over social performance. Number 3. victim mentality as a lifestyle. A Sigma male knows that life is not fair, that setbacks are inevitable, and that hardship is part of the human experience. What separates high-value men from the rest is not the obstacles they face, but how they choose to respond. Stoic wisdom teaches us that we are not defined by what happens to us, but by how we react to it. Yet, there are those who refuse to take responsibility, who live trapped in a victim mentality, where every misfortune is someone else's fault, where past pain becomes an identity, and where complaining replaces action. Have you ever met someone who always has a reason why nothing ever works out for them? A person who, no matter what advice they receive, has a ready-made excuse for why change is impossible? Sigma males recognize this toxic mindset instantly, and they have zero tolerance for it. Not because they lack empathy, but because they understand something fundamental. Victimhood is a choice, and it is a contagious one. A Sigma male takes this to heart. He doesn't dwell on unfairness because he knows that blaming the world solves nothing. He believes in self-reliance, adaptability, and ownership, the ability to acknowledge challenges but refuse to be ruled by them. When a Sigma meets someone who constantly plays the victim, he sees the warning signs immediately. Every story they tell revolves around how they were wronged. Every failure is someone else's fault. Parents, teachers, the government, the economy. Every time life presents an opportunity, they explain why it won't work instead of figuring out how to make it work. Conversations with them become exhausting loops of self-pity, where solutions are dismissed and excuses are endless. A Sigma doesn't argue with this type of person. He doesn't waste his time convincing them to change. He simply steps away, because mindsets are contagious, and a powerless mentality will poison even the strongest will. Psychological studies confirm that our environment shapes our thinking. If you're constantly surrounded by people who believe they are victims of life, it starts to wear on you. It becomes harder to believe in your own power, harder to take action when others around you refuse to. Sigma males protect their mindset fiercely, knowing that who they associate with will ultimately shape their future. They understand that struggle is universal, but suffering is a mindset, and remaining stuck in it is a choice. Consider two men who lose their jobs. One takes time to be frustrated but quickly shifts into action, learning new skills, applying for new opportunities, and adapting to the setback. The other spends months complaining about how the system is unfair, how his boss was out to get him, how the economy is against him. Which one do you think the Sigma male respects? Which one do you want to be? Stoic philosophy teaches that a man must be the master of his own fate. That doesn't mean ignoring hardship. It means owning your response to it. Sigma males offer genuine support to those facing real struggles. But there is a difference between offering a hand to someone who wants to stand and trying to lift someone who refuses to move. That's why this boundary is non-negotiable. They will not sacrifice their own mindset to maintain a relationship with someone who has embraced helplessness as a lifestyle, because in the end, your life is your responsibility. Stoic mindset is about accepting what you cannot change and mastering what you can. If you spend your time blaming others, waiting for circumstances to improve, or expecting life to be fair, you are choosing to stay down. And a Sigma male will not wait around to see if you ever decide to get up. Number 4. People who talk but never listen. A Sigma male values depth, respect, and meaningful connection, and there are few things he has less patience for than people who talk endlessly but never listen. Real conversations, like a game of catch, require both sides to engage. One person speaks, the other listens, then they switch. But some people only want to throw, never bothering to catch. Communication experts call this conversational narcissism, the tendency to shift every discussion back to oneself, turning what should be a shared exchange into a one-person performance. You mention your recent trip, and suddenly they're telling you about a better one. You open up about a challenge, and before you finish, they're already explaining why their struggle is bigger. Over time, this pattern becomes painfully predictable, leaving little room for genuine interaction. Sigma males are not interested in competing for airtime. They don't need to dominate a conversation, but they do need to know that their words are actually landing somewhere, that their presence is more than just background noise for someone else's monologue. At first, a Sigma might give the benefit of the doubt. Maybe the person is just enthusiastic, maybe they're nervous, maybe they don't realize what they're doing. But as this one-sided dynamic continues, his engagement starts to fade, his responses become shorter, his eye contact drifts, his body language shifts from open to closed, signaling disengagement. And without any argument or confrontation, the conversation starts ending earlier and earlier, until eventually it doesn't happen at all. This isn't rudeness, it's self-preservation. Talking to someone who never listens is like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. It drains energy while offering nothing in return. And because Sigma males prioritize substance over social performance, they quickly recognize when they're in a dynamic that adds no value and quietly remove themselves. What makes this behavior even more frustrating is the missed opportunities it creates. People who dominate conversations aren't just annoying, they actively lose information, insight, and understanding because they're too busy thinking about what they'll say next. The ancient Stoics understood the power of silence and active listening. As Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." True communication requires more than waiting for your turn to talk. It means actually hearing the other person, responding with awareness, and being present rather than just performing. The Sigma male, with his preference for depth over shallowness, has no patience for those who treat conversation as a stage instead of a shared experience. In life, conversational narcissism is everywhere. From office meetings where one colleague always hijacks discussions, to social gatherings where certain individuals turn every interaction into an opportunity to talk about themselves. Social media amplifies this further, where engagement is often performative rather than meaningful. How many times have you spoken to someone who nodded along, but their eyes were already glazing over, mentally preparing their next sentence? How many times have you tried to share something important, only for the focus to immediately shift away from you? These moments aren't just annoying, they're exhausting, because they remind you that the other person isn't really present. A Sigma male doesn't waste his breath in these situations. Instead of trying to force a real conversation where one doesn't exist, he simply redirects his energy elsewhere, toward those who understand that real connection is a two-way street. Stoic life lessons teach that our time and attention are precious, and they should not be squandered on those who do not respect them. Seneca put it best: "As is a tale, so is life. Not how long it is, but how good it is what matters." A Sigma applies this not just to life itself, but to the way he interacts with others. He knows that every conversation is a choice, an investment of time, energy, and attention. And if that investment brings no return, he withdraws it. He doesn't argue, doesn't demand change, doesn't waste effort trying to make a one-sided talker more self-aware. He simply removes himself, remaining polite in social settings, but never again offering them his real engagement. Because at the end of the day, a person who does not listen is not having a conversation. They are simply making noise while waiting for applause. So the question becomes, are you truly listening to the people around you, or are you just waiting for your turn to speak? Are your conversations genuine exchanges, or are they performances where only one voice truly matters? Understanding what is Stoicism means recognizing that speech is easy but listening is rare, and that true wisdom lies in knowing when to speak, when to listen, and when to walk away from those who do neither. Number 5. Blind conformity. It's human nature to want to belong. But there's a vast difference between making a conscious choice to align with a group and blindly following without questioning. Stoicism today teaches that true freedom comes from mastering one's own mind, not surrendering to the influence of the majority. Marcus Aurelius warned, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject." This is why Sigma males have zero tolerance for blind conformity. They are not interested in those who simply absorb whatever narrative is presented to them without thought, who change their beliefs based on whatever is trending, or who prioritize fitting in over seeking truth. The moment a Sigma identifies someone operating on herd mentality, their interest in that person begins to fade, not out of arrogance, but because independent thinking is a non-negotiable value. The world is full of people who check which way the wind is blowing before forming an opinion, who wear the same clothes, use the same phrases, and adopt popular beliefs without ever stopping to ask why. This is not just frustrating to a Sigma, it's a red flag. He has spent years refining his own worldview, challenging himself, and standing firm in his principles, even when they were unpopular. So when he encounters someone who merely echoes society's approved narrative, agreeing without thought, never questioning, never challenging, never forming their own conclusions, he sees nothing of value in that connection. The irony is that a Sigma will respect a person who thoughtfully disagrees with him far more than someone who blindly agrees with whatever seems safest. A man with strong, well-reasoned perspectives, even if they clash with a Sigma's own, is far more interesting than one who lacks the courage to think for himself. After all, Stoic happiness is not found in validation from others, but in the ability to trust one's own mind. Blind conformity is not harmless. It's what leads to societies that follow destructive ideas without question, workplaces where bad decisions go unchallenged, and personal lives where people wake up one day realizing they never truly lived for themselves. Think of the corporate worker who follows every new trend in the office, never voicing his own thoughts for fear of standing out. Or the man who nods along in conversations, agreeing with whatever seems socially acceptable, afraid to hold an unpopular opinion. Or worse, the person who changes their beliefs entirely just to avoid discomfort, who bends in whatever direction the majority moves. How many people truly live by their own principles, and how many are just mirroring what they believe others want to hear? A Sigma male sees through this, and rather than arguing or trying to wake people up, he simply disengages. He won't waste energy debating someone who hasn't even taken the time to form their own beliefs. He seeks depth, real thought, and meaningful conversation, not an echo chamber of recycled opinions. The greatest thinkers in history were nonconformists. Socrates was sentenced to death for questioning the norms of Athens. Seneca wrote of the importance of standing apart from the masses, stating, Associate with those who will make a better man of you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve. The process is mutual, for men learn while they teach. Even Epictetus, born into slavery, refused to adopt a victim mindset, carving out his own path to wisdom. The Sigma male takes these Stoic life lessons to heart, knowing that true freedom is the ability to think for oneself, not just to follow. He values relationships with those who challenge him, push him, and bring new perspectives to the table. A real connection is not built between people who merely mirror each other, but between minds that think independently and sharpen one another. If you found value in this video, make sure to like, share, and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you're committed to mastering the Sigma mindset and applying Stoic life lessons to your daily life, don't forget to subscribe to Stoic and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest videos. Thanks for watching, and remember, true strength comes from within. Stay disciplined, stay independent, and keep growing. See you in the next one. How to set boundaries in a relationship. 6 mindful tips to stay firm. Boundaries aren't about shutting people out. They're about letting the right things in. In today's world, where personal space is often overlooked and emotional energy is constantly tested, knowing how to set clear, mindful boundaries is essential. If you've ever felt exhausted from always saying yes, or struggled to voice your needs without guilt, you're not alone. The key to a healthy, fulfilling relationship isn't sacrificing yourself. It's learning to protect your time, emotions, and well-being while still fostering deep connections. In this video, we'll explore 6 mindful strategies to help you set boundaries with confidence, maintain your sense of self, and build relationships that empower rather than drain you. Welcome to Stoic, where wisdom meets resilience. Let's dive in. 1. Clarify your needs and values. Before you can set boundaries in a relationship, you must first understand what truly matters to you, what brings you peace, what makes you feel respected, and what aligns with your deepest values. Without this clarity, you risk drifting through relationships, reacting instead of leading, and allowing others to dictate your emotional space. The Stoics taught us the power of self-mastery, with Epictetus famously saying, "No man is free who is not master of himself." This is where boundary setting begins, not with the words you say to others, but with the truth you establish within yourself. Too often, men in their 40s, 50s, and beyond have spent years prioritizing the needs of others, family, work, friends, without pausing to ask, "What do I need?" This is not selfishness, this is self-respect. Without defined values, we become like a ship without a rudder, drifting wherever the waves take us. Clarity is power. It is the difference between feeling overwhelmed and standing firm in the face of life's inevitable demands. Once you understand your needs, you must learn to articulate them with confidence and calm. Many men were raised to suppress their desires, believing that voicing personal needs is weak or selfish. But true strength lies in knowing yourself and communicating that knowledge with clarity. Seneca wrote, "If one does not know to which port one is sailing, no wind is favorable." If you cannot express what you need, how can you expect others to respect it? Instead of assuming that your partner or loved ones should just know what you want, practice stating your needs directly, without apology or hesitation. This is not about being forceful or controlling. It is about self-respect, saying, "I need time for myself after work to decompress," or "I appreciate when household tasks are shared fairly," is not a demand. It is an honest statement of what allows you to thrive. In today's fast-paced world, where work and responsibilities often blur the lines between personal time and obligations, being clear about your boundaries prevents resentment from building. It is not about pushing people away, but about making space for a healthier, more fulfilling relationship. Boundaries are not walls. They are the structure that allows meaningful connections to flourish. However, even with clear boundaries, they must be enforced consistently. Many men struggle with this, feeling guilt when they say no or set limits. But as Marcus Aurelius advised, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Enforcing your boundaries does not mean controlling others. It means staying true to what you have defined as necessary for your well-being. Imagine a man who has expressed his need for personal time, but consistently caves when pressured to sacrifice it. Over time, he becomes frustrated, not just with others, but with himself, for failing to uphold his own standards. This erodes self-trust. Boundaries must be upheld, not just spoken. If you say that weekends are sacred family time, yet you keep checking work emails, your actions contradict your words. If you tell someone you need respect, yet you tolerate dismissive or belittling comments, you send the message that your boundaries are flexible. And the truth is, people respect those who respect themselves. Consistency builds credibility. Every time you stand firm, you reinforce not just your external relationships, but your internal resolve. An essential part of boundary setting is learning that discomfort is part of the process. Many men fear that setting boundaries will cause conflict or make them seem difficult, but avoiding short-term discomfort often leads to long-term regret. As the Stoics taught, we must focus on what is within our control, our actions, our responses, our integrity. It is better to have a difficult conversation now than to suffer years of resentment. A partner who truly values you will appreciate your honesty, even if it takes time to adjust. And if someone refuses to respect your boundaries, it is a sign that they were benefiting from your lack of them. The people who push back the hardest are often those who benefited the most from your silence. In the modern world, where social expectations and technology make it harder than ever to maintain personal space, boundaries are not just a luxury, they are a necessity. Too many men find themselves stretched thin, trying to be everything for everyone, while neglecting their own needs. The cost is high: burnout, frustration, and a loss of identity. But a man who knows his worth, who communicates his needs with calm assurance, and who stands by his principles, earns the respect of those around him. As Seneca wisely noted, a man is as unhappy as he has convinced himself he is. If you do not set your own limits, the world will set them for you. So take this moment to define what matters. Stand firm, lead your life with purpose, because boundaries are not just about relationships, they are about living with dignity, self-respect, and peace. 2. Say what you mean, but don't be mean. When setting boundaries in a relationship, clarity is not just important, it is essential. The way you communicate your needs determines how well they will be respected, and this starts with being direct but not abrasive. Too often, people hesitate to set boundaries because they fear coming across as rude or selfish. But the truth is, expressing your needs honestly is a form of self-respect. The Stoics understood this well, with Marcus Aurelius reminding us, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." This means you don't need to justify or over-explain your boundaries, Just state them with confidence and kindness. When you say what you mean, but don't say it in a way that harms others, you create space for mutual respect. Instead of feeling guilty for declining an invitation, you can say, "I'd love to catch up, but today is a bit overwhelming for me. How about tomorrow instead?" This is not only clear, but also leaves room for connection rather than creating unnecessary conflict. Being firm does not mean being harsh. It means valuing your time and emotional well-being enough to be upfront with others. In today's, where social expectations often push us to be endlessly available, knowing how to set boundaries is crucial for maintaining balance. How many times have you agreed to something just to avoid disappointing someone, only to later feel frustrated or exhausted? This is where the power of mindful communication comes in. Saying no or setting limits does not mean you are rejecting a person. It simply means you are prioritizing what is necessary for your well-being. The key is to use language that is both clear and compassionate, ensuring the other person understands your position without feeling dismissed. Seneca said, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." If you constantly stretch yourself thin trying to please everyone, you end up losing yourself in the process. This is why mastering the art of setting boundaries is not just about relationships, it is about cultivating inner peace, or as we might call it today, stoic happiness. A perfect example of this plays out in modern life all the time. Think of a man in his 50s, let's call him David, who has spent years putting work, family, and obligations before his own needs. Whenever a friend calls asking for a favor, he drops everything to help. When work emails come in late at night, he responds immediately. He never says no, because he's been conditioned to believe that saying yes to everyone makes him a good person. But over time, David starts to feel drained. His relationships feel one-sided. His work-life balance is non-existent, and he begins resenting the very people he once loved helping. It isn't until his health starts to decline from stress that he realizes something has to change. With a shift in mindset, embracing Stoicism today, he learns that setting boundaries doesn't make him selfish, it makes him strong. Instead of answering every request with immediate agreement, he begins responding with honesty. "I'd love to help, but I need to take care of some things first. Let's figure out a time that works for both of us." This small shift changes everything. His friendships remain intact, his colleagues respect his time more, and he no longer feels like his energy is constantly being drained. The lesson? When you don't set boundaries, you invite people to take you for granted, not because they mean to, but because you haven't shown them where your limits are. The real challenge is overcoming the guilt that often comes with setting boundaries. Many people worry about how others will react, but the reality is, the people who truly care about you will respect your limits. Those who don't, they were likely benefiting from your lack of boundaries. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This is the essence of a Stoic mindset. You cannot control how others react to your boundaries, but you can control how you set them. The more you practice saying what you mean with honesty and respect, the easier it becomes. Over time, you will notice that people begin treating you with more consideration, not because you demanded it, but because you demonstrated how you deserve to be treated. Begin by reflecting on where you feel stretched too thin. Is it at work, where you take on extra tasks because you fear saying no? Is it in friendships, where you feel obligated to always be available? Or in family relationships, where you constantly prioritize others over yourself? Once you identify these areas, start practicing small but firm responses that assert your needs while keeping the door open for mutual understanding. Instead of giving vague excuses, be direct. I need some time to recharge tonight, but let's catch up this weekend. Instead of overcommitting, state your limits. I can help with that, but only after I finish my own tasks. These statements don't push people away, they teach them to value your time just as much as you do. At its core, boundary setting is about self-respect, not control. It is about protecting your energy so you can show up fully for the things that matter most. In a world where people are always asking for more time, more attention, more effort, having the ability to say what you mean without being mean is one of the most powerful skills you can develop. And in doing so, you don't just improve your relationships, you improve your own sense of peace and fulfillment. Because when you respect your own boundaries, the world follows your lead. 3. Express yourself clearly and respectfully. Setting boundaries in a relationship is not about controlling others. It's about ensuring your own well-being. When communicating your boundaries, clarity and respect are essential, because the way you express yourself determines whether your needs will be understood or met with resistance. Too often, people mistake boundary setting for confrontation, but in reality, it's an act of self-care and self-respect. As Marcus Aurelius wisely said, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." This means taking ownership of your needs rather than placing blame on others. Instead of saying, "You never give me space," which can come across as an accusation, try expressing it in a way that centers on you. "I need some alone time to decompress." This subtle shift makes a significant difference as it removes defensiveness and invites understanding. The goal is not to make others feel guilty, but to ensure they recognize and respect your needs. One of the biggest challenges people face in setting boundaries is the fear of how others will react. Will they be upset? Will they think you're being difficult? These concerns are natural, but they should never override your responsibility to take care of yourself. Think about it. If you're always prioritizing other people's comfort over your own needs, where does that leave you? Likely exhausted, resentful, and disconnected from your own happiness. Seneca reminds us, "If you don't know what port you're sailing to, no wind is favorable." If you don't define your own limits, how can you expect others to respect them? A high-value man doesn't wait for permission to set his boundaries. He recognizes his worth and communicates his needs with confidence. So, what's stopping you from doing the same? The truth is, most people will respond to the energy you put out. If you hesitate, if you second-guess yourself, others will pick up on that uncertainty. But when you speak with certainty, when you calmly and firmly express what you need, you set a precedent for how you deserve to be treated. In a world that constantly demands more of us, more attention, more availability, more emotional labor, it is crucial to recognize that setting boundaries is not about pushing people away, it's about preserving the quality of your relationships. When you are clear about your needs, you prevent misunderstandings, resentment, and emotional exhaustion. The best relationships thrive not because one person sacrifices everything, but because both partners understand and respect each other's individual space and emotional needs. This is why Win Stoic is such a powerful philosophy, because it teaches you to lead your life with clarity, discipline, and self-respect. If you don't set boundaries, you invite people to take you for granted. Not because they mean to, but because you haven't shown them where your limits are. It's also important to recognize that some people will resist your boundaries, not because they don't care about you, but because they have become accustomed to a certain dynamic. When you begin asserting yourself, you may notice pushback, but this is a test of your resolve. Will you stay firm, or will you bend to accommodate others at the expense of your own well-being? Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." You cannot control how others react, but you can control how you communicate your needs. Stand firm, and over time, those who truly respect you will adjust. Setting boundaries isn't just a skill, it's a necessity for anyone who values their peace, their time, and their emotional health. High-value men don't allow guilt to dictate their decisions. They understand that their well-being is just as important as anyone else's. They set boundaries with confidence, knowing that respect starts with self-respect. They don't wait until they're overwhelmed or resentful. They communicate openly, directly, and without apology. So I ask you, where in your life do you need to set better boundaries? Where are you sacrificing your well-being to keep the peace? It's time to change that. Speak clearly, stand firm, and, most importantly, respect yourself enough to demand the same from others, because at the end of the day, the strongest relationships are built not on sacrifice, but on mutual understanding and respect. Now it's your turn. Drop a quick comment below. What's one boundary you need to set more firmly in your life? Just type "time for myself," "work-life balance," or "saying no without guilt," whatever resonates with you. Let's see how many of us are working on the same things. 4. Stick to your boundaries firmly. Setting boundaries is not just about making declarations. It's about standing firm in the face of resistance, which will inevitably come. People in your life, partners, friends, colleagues, even family, may push back, not because they wish to harm you, but because they have grown accustomed to a version of you that always accommodates their needs at the expense of your own. This is where many men struggle, especially those who have spent decades prioritizing others over themselves. The need to be agreeable, to avoid conflict, or to keep the peace often overrides the deep and necessary work of maintaining self-respect. But here's the truth. If you don't enforce your boundaries, no one else will do it for you. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus reminds us, how long are you going to wait before you demand the best for yourself? The discomfort of enforcing boundaries is temporary, but the regret of not doing so can last a lifetime. One of the biggest challenges of maintaining boundaries is overcoming the urge to people-please. Many men, especially those in their 40s, 50s and beyond, have been conditioned to equate saying yes with being kind and no with being difficult. But being agreeable at the cost of your own well-being is not kindness, it is self-abandonment. High-value men understand this distinction and act accordingly. They know that setting a boundary is not about rejecting others, it is about prioritizing what is essential for their mental, emotional, and even physical health. When you say, "I need time for myself," and someone insists otherwise, they are not just challenging your words, they are testing whether you truly believe in your own worth. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." The same applies to boundaries. If it is not right for you to compromise, do not do it. If it is not true to who you are, do not allow it. And now, let's bring this into life. Think about a man like Richard, a successful entrepreneur in his 50s, who has spent years sacrificing personal time to maintain his business, friendships, and family obligations. Over time, he notices that his exhaustion turns into quiet resentment, but instead of addressing it, he internalizes it. It's not until he starts suffering from stress, health issues, that he realizes something has to change. He finally decides to set boundaries, scheduling time for himself, saying no to unnecessary obligations, and making his needs clear. At first, people react with confusion, some even frustration. "You've changed," they tell him. And he has, but for the better. Because he stood firm, over time the people who truly respected him adjusted, and those who only valued his compliance faded away. The lesson here? Boundaries reveal who truly respects you. If someone only values your presence when you have no boundaries, they never valued you. Only what you provided. Holding firm on boundaries also builds credibility. If you set a limit but constantly make exceptions, you teach people that your words are flexible, that your needs are secondary. This is why so many men find themselves caught in cycles of frustration, because they say one thing but allow another. If you tell someone that you will not answer work emails on weekends, but then respond, "just this once," you've already shown them that your boundary is not real. If you tell a partner you need space, but then cave every time they demand your attention, you are teaching them that your time is negotiable. Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic thinkers, said, "He who indulges in empty fears earns himself real fears." If you fear enforcing your boundaries because of possible conflict, you will eventually create real stress, exhaustion, and resentment in your life. Of course, enforcing boundaries is not about being rigid for the sake of it. It's about being consistent so that people understand how to engage with you. This doesn't mean you can't be flexible when it truly matters, but it does mean you should not let guilt dictate your decisions. Think about how many times you have said yes when you really wanted to say no. How many times you have agreed to something out of obligation rather than genuine desire. What has that cost you? Peace of mind? Time that could have been spent on things that truly fulfill you? A man who does not guard his own time and energy will find himself exhausted, not by life's unavoidable demands, but by the unnecessary burdens he allowed into his life. If you struggle with this, start small. Say no to the things that drain you. Stand firm when people push back, and observe how over time the resistance fades, replaced by a newfound respect from those around you. Ultimately, boundaries are not about control. They are about clarity. When you set them, you teach people how to treat you. When you enforce them, you teach yourself that your needs matter. And when you stay consistent, you build a life of self-respect, fulfillment, and peace. In the end, the greatest lesson of Stoic life lessons is this: you are not responsible for how others react to your boundaries, but you are responsible for maintaining them. So be the man who speaks his truth with conviction, who stands firm even when challenged, and who refuses to live a life dictated by others' expectations. The respect you seek from the world starts with the respect you show yourself. 5. Know when to compromise. Setting boundaries in a relationship is not about building walls. It's about creating a structure where both partners feel respected, valued, and understood. However, just as a house needs both strong beams and flexible joints to withstand life's storms, relationships require both consistency and compromise. Many men, especially those who embrace a Stoic mindset, misunderstand boundaries as something rigid, thinking that any adjustment means weakness or surrender. But true strength lies in knowing when to stand firm and when to be adaptable. The key is balance. honoring your needs without disregarding your partner's. If you're exhausted after a demanding week and your partner wants to spend time together, instead of saying a blunt no, you could say, "I'd love to spend quality time with you, but I'm really drained tonight. How about we plan something special this weekend when I can be fully present?" This way, you uphold your boundary without making your partner feel neglected. Seneca once said, "A gift consists not in what is done or given, but in the intention of the giver." The same applies to relationships. What matters is not just what you do, but the intention behind your actions. The goal isn't to win every negotiation, but to cultivate mutual respect where both partners feel valued. Compromise is often misunderstood as giving up, but in reality it is an act of wisdom. The question is, how do you know when to bend and when to hold your ground? The answer lies in self-awareness. Many men have spent years, even decades, prioritizing others, whether it's their career, their family, or societal expectations, without truly considering their own needs. This leads to exhaustion, resentment, and a loss of identity. A man who lives with stoic happiness understands that self-respect comes first, but he also recognizes that a relationship is a partnership, not a battlefield. If every decision turns into a contest of wills, both partners lose. The solution? Clarity and communication. Instead of feeling pressured into situations you don't want, express your needs clearly while showing that you also care about your partner's happiness. If your partner asks for something that feels like a burden, ask yourself, is this something I truly cannot do, or am I resisting because I feel obligated rather than inspired? If it's the latter, it may be an opportunity to reframe your perspective. The biggest mistake men make in relationships is seeing every compromise as a loss of control. But if you think about it, control is an illusion. You can't control your partner's desires, emotions, or needs, only your response to them. If you rigidly enforce boundaries without flexibility, you don't create security, you create distance. Real power lies in knowing which battles matter and which moments call for grace. This is not weakness, it's strategic wisdom. A man who understands what is Stoicism realizes that every relationship is a negotiation of time, energy, and priorities. But if you're always the one compromising without reciprocation, that's a different issue entirely. Compromise should not mean erasing yourself for the sake of peace. It means both partners making adjustments that create a stronger connection, not one person constantly bending while the other remains unchanged. Apply this in your daily life. Start by identifying your non-negotiables. What are the things you truly need for your well-being? Is it alone time? Time for your passions? A specific approach to handling finances, parenting, or social obligations? Whatever it is, communicate these things clearly. Then, identify areas where you can be flexible without losing yourself. Maybe it's agreeing to attend an event you wouldn't normally enjoy, but setting a time limit so you don't feel drained. Maybe it's planning quality time in advance rather than reacting in the moment. Maybe it's agreeing to occasional changes in routine, but ensuring that you still get your personal space. When you know your core needs, compromise stops feeling like sacrifice and starts feeling like strategy. And that's the difference between a man who leads his life and a man who is controlled by it. In the end, relationships thrive not on stubbornness, but on adaptability. A man who embodies stoic happiness does not see compromise as surrender, but as an opportunity to strengthen the bond he shares with his partner. He does not let pride prevent him from making adjustments that serve the greater good of the relationship. He does not fear flexibility, because he knows it does not threaten his masculinity, it enhances it. The truth is, your partner will respect you more when they see that you are firm on what truly matters, but wise enough to bend when it serves the relationship. As Seneca wisely put it, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. The fear of compromise often causes more stress than the compromise itself. 6. Prioritize self-care, establishing. Prioritizing self-care is not just a luxury, it is the foundation of maintaining strong and effective boundaries. Without it, even the best intentions to set limits can crumble under pressure. Many men, especially those who have spent years providing for their families, leading businesses, or fulfilling obligations, often neglect their own needs in the pursuit of being reliable and strong for others. But here's the truth. If you don't take care of yourself, no one else will do it for you. The philosopher Seneca reminds us, a man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than necessary. And yet, how often do we allow stress, exhaustion, and burnout to dictate our decisions before realizing that we have nothing left to give? High-value men understand that self-care isn't selfish, it's essential. They recognize that filling their own cup first ensures they can show up fully for the people who matter. When you are mentally clear, emotionally stable, and physically well, you naturally set and enforce boundaries more effectively. Taking care of yourself isn't about occasional breaks or fleeting indulgences. It's about creating a structured, non-negotiable routine that strengthens your mind, body, and spirit. This means dedicating time each day to activities that recharge you, whether it's engaging in a hobby, spending time in nature, exercising, reading, or simply enjoying a moment of solitude. If you constantly push yourself to meet the needs of others without refueling, resentment will inevitably creep in. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and yet so many men try to do just that. Think about the last time you felt genuinely rested and at peace. Was it last week, last month, or longer? Wynn's Stoic philosophy teaches us that we must master ourselves before we can influence the world around us. Strength doesn't come from endless sacrifice. It comes from self-discipline and knowing when to step back and recharge. If you are constantly drained, your boundaries become weak, and before you know it, you are saying yes to things you don't want, tolerating behaviors that frustrate you, and neglecting your own needs in the name of keeping the peace. The biggest challenge in prioritizing self-care is overcoming the guilt associated with it. Many men feel that taking time for themselves means they are being less available to the people who depend on them. But let's flip that perspective. What if self-care actually makes you a better partner, father, leader, or friend? What if taking care of yourself isn't taking away from others, but actually giving them the best version of you? High-value men know that they can only be their strongest when they are operating from a place of clarity and energy. Self-care isn't about ignoring responsibilities. It's about making sure you are in the best position to handle them. If you wouldn't let your car run out of fuel, why would you allow yourself to run on empty? What is the cost of constant burnout, and how different would your life look if you treated your own well-being as a priority rather than an afterthought? So what does this look like in practice? Start small, but be consistent. Carve out 20 minutes each morning to clear your mind, whether that's through meditation, journaling, or simple deep breathing. Schedule non-negotiable time for things that bring you joy, even if that means telling others, "This time is for me." Set clear limits on work obligations, social expectations, and even family dynamics that drain you. Learn to say no without guilt, because every time you say yes to something that depletes you, you are saying no to something that could restore you. When you take care of yourself, you are not just improving your own life, you are setting an example for others, your partner, your children, your friends. They will see that you are serious about your boundaries and may even be inspired to set their own. And isn't that a far greater gift than simply being available at all times, even at the cost of your well-being? At its core, self-care is about recognizing your own value. Stoic men don't wait for permission to take care of themselves. They claim it as a necessity. They understand that without self-respect, there can be no respect from others. They know that enforcing boundaries is not about being difficult, but about being disciplined. And they embrace the wisdom of the Stoics, who taught that peace comes not from external validation, but from within. As Seneca wisely put it, "He who is brave is free." And what greater freedom is there than the ability to live on your own terms, with your energy intact and your boundaries respected? The choice is yours. Will you continue to put yourself last, or will you start leading your life with the strength and self-respect you truly deserve? Thank you for spending your time here and for being part of this conversation on setting boundaries and self-respect. Remember, the way you define and uphold your limits shapes the quality of your relationships and, more importantly, your well-being. Your growth and self-worth matter, and every small step toward asserting yourself is a step toward a stronger, more fulfilling life. If today's discussion resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content that helps you lead with clarity and confidence. Stay strong, stay true to yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.